Welcome to part 2 of the No Movement Stick Challenge, a video series in which I attempt to complete the entirety of GTA 5 without ever moving the left stick. Before we get into the horrors that await us, I just wanted to let you know that I've changed the name of this challenge from the No Walking and No Move Challenge to the No Movement Stick Challenge, as I feel this is what best describes the series. For any new viewers, the rules of this challenge are pretty straightforward. I can't move the left stick on my controller for any reasons, and if I get completely and utterly stuck on a mission, I'll allow myself to skip. Anyway, without further ado, let's jump straight into the next mission, Franklin and Lamar. And oh boy, I had no idea exactly what I was about to endure. The mission starts off fairly simple. All you have to do is follow Lamar down this path. This can be achieved by constantly pressing the punch button. You can use first person to make some slight adjustments to your direction. Oh, and try not to kick the cat, if you can help it. From here, all we need to do is get in the car. After the cutscene, the real fun begins. We're supposed to race Lamar around Los Santos at high speeds, dodging and weaving out of traffic, and by the end of it we make it to this point on the map. Now you may start to see the immediate issue with this. Without the movement stick I cannot turn, at all. Lamar will always drive away from you at a constant speed, and if I can't keep up with him, well, the mission fails. From the looks of things it seems I need to steer in order to progress. A lot of you said on the last video that there's no way I could do this, that it was utterly impossible, and although you may be right, the best way to tackle a seemingly impossible problem like this is to break it down into smaller chunks. Let's first find out exactly what my goal is here. Yes, it is to complete the mission, obviously, but let's break it down even further. Let's try to focus all their efforts on just getting to the next checkpoint. From testing, I found out that the player themselves hasn't actually got to cross this checkpoint, only Lamar does, so the furthest possible point in which I can pick up the checkpoint would be around here. We've discovered where our goal is. Now let's analyse exactly what path Lamar takes and exactly how far away I can be from him. Lamar will always take the same scripted path, and will slow down or speed up if you're behind or in front of him. In his slowest state it will take him 2 minutes and 20 seconds to reach the first checkpoint, meaning I need to get from here to here in 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Now let's find out exactly how far away I can be from him. Although it does seem to change depending on where you are. The circle's radius most of the time is 870 feet, which looks something like this. I made this little simulation of the path Lamar takes, plus this area you need to stay within. From this we can find the optimal path to the checkpoint with the least amount of turns possible. The first path I looked into went something like this. I used the alleyway here to avoid following him around the movie studio, but then I noticed another way that seemed a lot simpler, that has a lot less turns. With optimal setup and luck, in theory I would only need to completely alter my direction a total of 4 times, which doesn't seem all too bad. Now we have our goal and path all laid out. All I've got to do now is to keep running the gauntlet and actually find a way to pull it off. Luckily the first part of the drive isn't particularly too bad. Due to some of the traffic being scripted, it was fairly easy to find a somewhat consistent path to the foot of the hill. You need to first ram into this car at just the right time. If done right you'll be able to fairly quickly turn left, if you hug the wall all the way to the end of the road. You can utilise one of these cars that always turn right to guide yourself up the hill. When you're on the hill you need to hope that no traffic gets in your way. If it does, it's game over. Try to keep yourself on the left side of the road. The curb to the left will slightly push you to the right, and the slight angle of the road should push you back to the left. The slower you go the better this works, but you obviously need to do this pretty quick to avoid losing Lamar. Speaking of Lamar, at this point he should be well and truly ahead. As soon as you get to the top of the hill, you need to get on this road facing this direction within 10 to 13 seconds, which is ridiculously difficult. It's basically complete luck here, floor it and pray. When you're on this road, if possible use the curb to the right to perfectly align yourself all the way to the alleyway. Once you're next to the alleyway, you'll likely need to wait here until Lamar catches up. As soon as he does, reverse yourself back and try to utilise the walls, lampposts, trees, whatever to alter your direction down this road. Once that's done, you should be able to hit the checkpoint. Now it's all well and good saying all of this, but let me tell you, putting this off is probably one of the most frustrating things I've ever experienced in GTA. No matter how much strategy I put into this, I'm always at the mercy of RNG. The hardest part of this strategy is definitely this section here. You have such little time to do anything except from floor it. The chances of getting turned in the right direction multiple times in such a small time frame is just too much. And let's not forget that every time I fail I have to punch my way to the cars again, wasting even more time. Although I can ever so slightly improve my chances by slowly getting better and better over time, at the end of the day it's a game of chance. I'm sure it's technically possible, but honestly I'm not willing to spend the tens if not hundreds of hours it would likely take to even get on this road here. Unfortunately, I've exhausted pretty much everything I can do here, so I'm going to have to skip to the next checkpoint. The fun doesn't stop here though. We're just a quarter of the way done with the mission. Now we have to basically do the same thing we did last time, but this time in a slightly different location. I did the exact same thing as I did with the last one, mapping out where we need to go, where Lamar goes, the best possible path, yada yada yada. The best path only requires you to make a significant turn 3 times, which is better than the previous checkpoint. Also, Lamar stops at the end, so if we can manage to stay within his radius until then, we can take as much time as we need actually getting to him. This checkpoint is technically a lot easier than the last one, but to be honest that's not really saying much. I've done over 100 attempts at this and I've only gone halfway there once. I did a bit more research on the later turns and honestly I just don't think it's possible, especially at the end. No cars spawn around here. meaning there's literally no way we can alter our direction without smashing into a wall, praying the physics engine works in our favour, which it usually doesn't. Once again, strategy and practice can only get you so far, and for me I can't even make it halfway through this path. If anyone out there can prove that this is possible, then I'll go back and give it another go. But for now we're just going to have to take the hit and add on 2 skips for this challenge. Now after countless hours, I'm talking 7-8 hours of playing, we finally hit the halfway point for this mission. Now it's not the time for celebrating though, as in this next scene we have to escape the cops. It goes about as well as you would expect, with many fails, arrests and deaths. The strategy I came up for this one is to get out of the parking lot, go down this road, turn left and stop at this point here. I would then jump down and hide in a nearby tunnel. If done quick enough, I should hopefully lose the cops pretty quick. Surprisingly, my plan worked like a charm. I was able to execute it only 5 minutes into attempting it. I lost the cops pretty easily and punched my way all the way back to my vehicle. It feels nice finally being able to drive without a time limit. I took my time and drove closer and closer to the dealership, but for some reason the mission just failed out of nowhere. Apparently I got the car stuck when it clearly wasn't stuck at all. It turns out that if you repeatedly press the accelerator and brake, the game will think that you're stuck. Unfortunately, a lot of my movement does rely on these quick button presses, so I had to do everything a lot more slowly, which of course just wastes more time. You gotta love it. It took another 20 minutes, but I managed to lose the cops again, and I, more carefully this time, made my way to the dealership. It takes patience, but with enough time you can make it all the way to Simeon's place. After this cutscene, all that stands between us now is driving Franklin's car back to his house. In comparison to everything else we've been through on this mission, this feels like a walk in the park. Due to where Franklin's car is positioned, most of my time was spent like this. It was painful, but I managed to get myself all the way to Franklin's house, and after many tries I got into his garage, which finally completes the mission. I let out a sigh of relief. That's 2 missions down and I now have access to Freemode. One thing I didn't anticipate in this challenge was how I was going to move within interiors. While in Franklin's house I can't melee nor equip a weapon, so half of my movement options were out the window. I could luckily just barely move with cover, but then I was hit with another big roadblock, the front door. That's 2 times now that a door has posed a significant threat to this challenge, and this was a big threat indeed. I couldn't roll, melee, punch or take cover past it. All of my current movement strats failed me here. I either had to find a new movement method or fail the challenge here and now. I was literally stuck in my own house, physically unable to get out. I tried to think outside the box and desperately used my phone, calling the police, taking photos, whatever. I was hoping for a miracle. And just in the nick of time, I found one. Enter the camera movement strat. If you bring up your phone, look behind you, enter the camera app, back out, go into first person and look forward again. You will move ever so slightly forward. Luckily, this is much faster than a gun melee strat we did on the last video, so it shouldn't take us too long to get past the door. And sure enough, it only took a measly 10 minutes. I was finally free. You have no idea how nice this felt. No restrictions, no timers and no missions. Now that we're in free mode, I thought it would be good to think about the longevity of this challenge. I desperately needed a more reliable way to move both on foot and in vehicles. The fastest way I can see myself moving on foot is by doing a combat role. To do this however, I'll need a gun, and if I actually want to make it worthwhile, I need to get Franklin's shooting skill maxed out, so that the cooldown between rolls is decreased. It'll be better to do this now rather than later, so I decided to postpone the next mission until I got this sorted out. I attempted to punch my way to the local shooting range, but a random guy on the street decided that right now will be a great time to pick on the one guy who can't walk properly. The nerve of some people. I got beaten up and respawned at a hospital. I'm now much further away from my destination, so I just decided to call a cab, which I could honestly see being my main mode of transportation. I got to ammunition and punched my way through the door. It took me around 15 minutes, but by using cover and that new camera movement strat, I eventually signed up for the range. I spent 30 minutes getting gold medals on nearly every challenge, which shot Franklin all the way up to the max shooting skill. I tried to make my way back out of the shooting range, but for some reason this door is incredibly difficult to open. The camera strat works, but the door constantly pushes you back, so you're never really making any ground. I had to experiment and optimise the strat just to be able to barely get through the door, but after that, getting out was pretty much the same as getting in. To let you know just how time consuming this was, that little excursion to the shooting range took me 1 hour and 30 minutes. Only 30 minutes of that was actually me shooting. There's a whole hour of footage here of me just trying to enter and exit the place. Now that Franklin's gun skill is maxed out, all we need now is a gun. We haven't got the funds to buy one at the moment, so we'll need to find one from around the map. Luckily, I know of an SMG location that's fairly close by. I used a taxi to get as close as I could, but as I couldn't tell the driver exactly where I wanted to go, on account of no left stick, and I couldn't move on my map to place a map marker down, on account of no left stick, I had to punch most of the way there. Luckily, I didn't even have to go to the place, as a random police officer killed some gang members on the street. So like the good citizen I am, I took the pistol from his cold, dead hands. I was now not only armed with a pistol, but also the fastest way I could realistically move on foot. And with that, I moved valiantly on to the next mission, Repossession. We were asked by Simeon to repossess a certain motorbike from a dangerous group of individuals in Vespucci Beach. It can't be much worse than what we've been through already. At this point, I'm starting to get the hang of driving without steering, so I got to the location in a fairly speedy 8 minutes. When I got there, I just needed to do some basic movement to make it to the garage. After finding out that the bike is indeed not here, we get jumped by a bunch of gang members. Despite me not being able to move very well, shooting was still pretty easy. I dispatched most of them with very little trouble, and I rolled my way back to the gates. When you get close to the gates, a guy riding the bike we need spawns in, and if you don't shoot him in time, he'll drive away. As you could guess, we are in no fit state to chase anyone, let alone a bike, so when I missed my initial shots, I knew I was screwed. I failed the mission, of course, but the worst part was that there's a checkpoint here that starts off with him already out of sight. There was no way I could succeed here unless he somehow fell off by himself, so I had to restart the whole mission and try and shoot him off first time. Luckily, it didn't take too long and I managed to hit him off pretty quick. My objective now is to deliver the bike to Lamar, which took way longer than I thought it would. To my surprise, riding a motorbike without steering is a lot more difficult than driving a car without steering. Although it took me 8 minutes to drive here by car, it took me 40 long minutes to drive back on a motorbike, but I managed it in the end, making that another mission down without any skips. For a total rundown today, we passed 2 missions, gathered up an unfortunate 2 skips, got a weapon and maxed out our shooting skill. We're making steady but decent progress. The next mission on our to-do list is complications, which I'm gonna do next time. I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you later.